If you want to win in life, then you have to become immune to victim consciousness. Because every single person that wants to succeed and at the same time maintains that inner victim is unable to confront the parts of them that actually need to be understood for the awakening process to continue. The inner victim is the program that keeps you stagnant. It destroys all possibilities of true success, joy, abundance, and connection to your higher self. It's the roadblock on the awakening or the ascension journey. Because for as long as you're associating with yourself as the victim in life, you prevent all learning, evolution, and all potentialities that can only be touched when you allow yourself to give rise to the power of the sacred essence, as opposed to this frozen part of you that's crippled by fear, by shame, by guilt, or by any kind of resistance that you've ever faced in your life. The reason why the victim energy is so difficult for a lot of people to transcend and to transmute is because when you face it, you think that this energy is one that you always need to identify with. For many, the victim energy is a state of their personal truth. When the pain body becomes so loaded with negative experiences that the identity is seen through the lens of that trauma and that distorted self that maybe wasn't approved of or accepted by other people, or that never was given a chance to experience true empowerment, authenticity, and love. If you're looking at yourself through the lens of that inner victim, then you're unable to see your light. And so you're entrenched in this mode of personal darkness, seeing only your faults, seeing yourself through the lens of other people that once degraded you, devalued you, or weren't able to see the sacred in you. Why? Because they likewise aren't able to see the sacred in themselves. The victim energy is like a parasite or a virus that spreads from being to being that doesn't understand how to connect to the divinity within them and to likewise connect to it all around. Because that victimized complex within the self is akin to a martyrdom program that creates consistent self-sacrifice, self-sabotage, and self-devaluation, wherein you can't even see that there's a way out because the victim program is the predominant narrator in your experience, telling you what you can and can't do based on all of those traumatic programs that created that victimized self. If we try to analyze the victim nature from the perspective of energy, we see that this is really a fractal. It's a program that is seated within the psyche of any person that inherits trauma or a karmic aspect of the generational program that was passed down to them. It's a program that's picked up when you were either loved conditionally or when you didn't receive the feeling of deep empowerment to be your true self and to allow yourself to lovingly integrate even those painful experiences so that you can become the most evolved, powerful, and true version of you. If you inherit the victim program, you think that you are now bearing this torch of victimhood, like it is somehow your duty to maintain trauma and to not transcend those difficult generational blockages because you think it is your duty to perpetuate that lineage of pain. You might feel like you would be actually disobeying the orders of those that came before you if you transcend your own victimhood. Very often this is seated as that good boy or good girl program wherein somebody tries to maintain the victimized self in order to please other people, to meet their needs, meanwhile sacrificing their own because they think that they will never be accepted if they truly step into that highest, most powerful and secure state of the self. The victim program does exactly that. It's like a blindfold that you put on yourself in order to avoid seeing the deepest truth about you. Because you know deep down that if you were to embody your soul's true nature, its true desires, its deepest inclinations, you would need to face resistance from all those that aren't capable of truly loving and accepting the true you if you choose to transcend that inner victim. So in many ways, the victim program is maintained simply because you think that you are no longer going to be as relatable in that prior paradigm that you were born into. So for many people, the relationship to the victim program is a very serious and complex one. You might be feeling deep down that in order for you to be approved of as a human being, you must be on some level that victim, showing up to meet other people's expectations of you, constantly keeping yourself small, dimming your light, or showing up in a space of self-limitation because you're constantly thinking about how to show up for them to meet their needs and expectations as opposed to just being that transparent, congruent, and most soulful version of you at your core. Therefore, we can say that to transcend the victim program is to choose to be a rebel when it comes to identifying with your soul's architecture as opposed to the persona that was created as a result of lived traumatic experiences, different programmed expectations, and society's conditioning. It's to see that you have a fundamental choice when it comes to how you want to live your life. You can either choose to constantly play the victim game, even throwing a pity party internally whenever you deal with any kind of challenges or difficult circumstances, which are giving you a chance to choose deeper self-awareness and self-transcendence, or you can choose to stay fixated to all of those karmic limitations and even go as far as to believe that you are being punished for choosing to evolve. Because what that victim energy often does in the role of the inner critic or inner judge that lives within many of us is that it makes us feel that as soon as we choose self-love for ourselves, or we choose to make a daring decision to align with our higher selves, that there is going to be some repercussion to be found along the way. The victim program very often intensifies in its deep resistant qualities as soon as you get really close to making a powerful decision to liberate yourself. For instance, if you've already figured out that your working conditions don't allow you to experience your true self, your purpose, and your passions in life, then you might have a need to choose a different job, perhaps to try something totally new, to embody new abilities, gifts, and to place more importance on your sovereignty and autonomy as opposed to being a cog in a system. Now, before you make that decision, you might have that victim program come up in intensity internally and try to get you to second guess whether or not you're actually going to be able to maintain this autonomy after all. The victim energy is going to throw you back into reality of self-disempowerment, trying to convince you that your safety is going to be relinquished as soon as you allow yourself to lose control over this condition that your ego has already created for you. And so if you try to listen to the inner narrator that is essentially backing the victimized version of yourself, you are not going to be prone to making any new leaps of faith, any choices, or taking any risks, especially because it's always going to try to make you fall for those traps in your own consciousness, which prevent you from actually rising into your highest version of self. When you come face to face with that victim program within you, you're going to start to expose many of these illusions that support the victim that lives within the self. And when you really start to unwind the stories that are told by that inner martyr or critic, as the case may be, you're going to see that there's nothing actually supporting those narratives coming from you other than what you've chosen to buy into. Each one of those programs speaks of a kind of collective spell that generations of souls have been entrapped because of. These are different generational programs that have to do with the feminine choosing to be in a disempowered state, choosing to repress genuine feelings, gifts of a spiritual nature, and wisdom, because that has been seen, historically speaking, as something that is worth repressing, because society perhaps hasn't been ready to assimilate some of those deeper truths, and many people have not been at that level of consciousness where wisdom and truths regarding the true spiritual nature of reality can be assimilated. So if you think of yourself as a being that is also not just fixed to this time-space reality and to this singular version of yourself, you might see how your ideas of victimhood also play into the larger systemic whole. You have learned many of these ideas throughout your lifetime, and perhaps even over multiple lifetimes, surrounding what you must do to yourself in terms of creating limiting beliefs, negative thought patterns, and constriction to cause you to eliminate the odds of actually becoming your truest, most integrated version of self. This plays into any single time you choose to create a filter to remove yourself from free expression, from acting on your deepest compulsions, from choosing to speak your truth, to vocalize what you feel deep down and what you know is true. The way that this energy may also present itself is in the form of you being a social chameleon, or a kind of shapeshifter donning multiple personas and subtle identity structures that limit the odds of you being restricted or rejected by those around you. You might have learned to pick up this subtle quality within you that prevents rejection because you know how to fine-tune yourself in these subtle ways based on people's expectations, how they see you, what they want, and even using your superpower as an empath and being able to predict how people are going to respond to you, which allows you to change your behavior for them rather than allowing yourself to showcase your true qualities of being with consistency. If you decide to become immune to victim consciousness, you essentially need to do away with all of these limitations, including the false mechanisms of trying to preserve yourself by actually choosing to fragment yourself into a million different pieces that you save for different people based on the circumstances in which you try to maximize your odds of being accepted. By realizing that the only way that you really win in life is by choosing sovereignty, authenticity, transparency, and personal truth, you recognize that the only thing you really need to do is to allow yourself to refine the relationship to your true self and to eliminate any feeling that what is happening to you is capable of derailing you from your ultimate evolution. We can get to a point where we actually see everything that is happening to us is providing a specific experience that's allowing us to step into an even higher quality of our developed self. Every experience is already reflecting to us what we're subconsciously capable of transmuting and understanding more deeply. And so if we start to see reality as this active, algorithmic simulation actually feeding us the opportunities for us to step into a more powerful version of us, then the main lesson there is that we need to accept all of these opportunities and choose to learn from all of them. Because as soon as we choose to shut down or to move back into a mode of rejection, or even feeling that the world is punishing us in any way, then we're actually adopting self-punishment as a strategy for coping with those challenges. And the ultimate self-punishment is choosing not to evolve throughout this evolutionary journey in any way that it continues to unfold. It's important for us to also note that many people that pretend to not be in a state of victim consciousness are actually the ultimate victims. This includes the narcissists, the psychopaths of our world, those that are choosing to maintain these false mechanisms of egoically shielding themselves from pain, difficult emotions, and from any challenges, which looks like the energy of toxic positivity. Whenever somebody's choosing to limit their exposure to pain or to the difficult truths that are coming up for that deeper self-realization, then they're going to actually be in this energy of dissonance. The way that that view can show up is if somebody is expressing in a way of overtly being sure that they know everything that they possibly can know about themselves and reality. And so they're limiting their exposure to personal blind spots. To explore the victim consciousness aspect of such a person, especially when we're looking at the dark triad of these personality types, the thing that's most called for is understanding what is the nature of the self when no things are attached to it. When we literally allow ourselves to bare our own souls and to sink into that naked essence of our being, which allows us to explore whether we actually know how to identify with ourselves, if not through external variables, the things we do, the people we relate to, the stuff that we acquire because of our expressed personalities and personas. And we just let ourselves sink into that energetic truth of what we're feeling deep down. A way to think about this also is contemplating whether you feel differently about yourself when you're surrounded by people or by the chaotic aspects of your reality versus just being with yourself in aloneness and the solitude of your inner experience. Do you feel differently, and does the inner victim begin to show its voice when you are completely estranged from those external variables that typically provide self-gratification and self-soothing? Because what you start to discover about yourself in aloneness is that the inner victim still wants more to experience in order to feel worthy within itself. To annihilate victim consciousness, we need to meet the deepest unmet needs within the self, which means we have to do the work of choosing to profoundly plunge into the depths of our inner being and explore everything that we have been keeping away from ourselves. There can be no more hiding, coping, or resistant mechanisms by which we actually blind ourselves from seeing our own truth, and we choose to radically integrate all of these elements. This is a very powerful commitment because once you make this decision for yourself, you know that whenever you feel like a victim, you're really shying away from something that you can choose to learn from to become even more powerful. And that raises then an even deeper question, which is why would so many of us actually be afraid of our own power? The victim complex very often conveniently places us at odds with our most powerful part of ourselves. That is the energy that lives within the sacral chakra, the heart chakra, and everything that wants to be received through the higher chakra system that grants us the spiritual edge in reality, including our intuition, our claircognizant instincts, and our ability to see with clarity in ways that defy even our mind's expectations of what is possible for us. If you're already receiving information, energy, and insights that reflect the higher self's reality, and perhaps even a new paradigm that can exist within the future of humanity, you may be feeling like there's no way to integrate this high up there information because you haven't yet become rooted enough in yourself to support that high frequency state of being. And that again reveals the clashing of interests between the ego's victimized personality and the soul's limitless, abundant nature. To become comfortable with your power is to realize that you need to start to allow yourself to experience all those things that you know you are and deserve deep down, that your lower self might not yet be comfortable with experiencing. If you have any conditional programs surrounding, let's say, money, your status, the things that you can experience when you open up your energy field and let yourself simply enter the graceful flow state, and becoming your true self in relationships, in work situations, and in all parts of your reality, then you have to contend with any inner aspects and beliefs that are still limiting you, and really start to challenge yourself on why are you choosing to uphold these limitations when you already know the truth of what you're here for. After the start of a spiritual awakening journey, typically people realize that they're doing themselves a significant disservice by choosing to victimize themselves and pacify this urge to keep expanding and applying themselves more holistically. Because more and more situations come up to create that friction. You simply cannot continue to evolve in a spiritual manner and maintain victim consciousness because the two exterminate one another. Victim consciousness is the energy that renders all development obsolete, because a victim is one that doesn't believe in their ability to progress. That's the energy of a lost soul that doesn't even want to experience the possibilities of life outside of this dense matrix reality. So if you identify with yourself as a victim, then you're not even curious about how life can feel if you let go of all of these aspects of you that are challenging you. You don't feel that you are deserving, perhaps, of allowing things to be easier, freer, and to let yourself experience liberation from all of these illusions that many of us identify with in a very physical and rigid way. Perhaps the most interesting part is that if you consider yourself in a mode free of victimhood, you may start to contact a totally different truth emerging about who you are, why you're here, and what you're supposed to be doing with your life. You may start to see things in a very existential, higher dimensional style altogether, realizing that these problems that you invest so much time and energy into dwelling on, complaining about, or perhaps trying to solve by creating even more resistance to them, can all be extinguished by simply choosing to move into that higher frame of reference when you don't allow yourself to play the victim game anymore. Choosing to depart from victim consciousness is to profoundly heal from yourself in a state of struggle and lower-level survival impulses. It's to make things easier by choosing to quantum jump into a reality where you're not even fixated on the struggle. You operate based on new rules, principles of yourself, and you prioritize consciousness over all of these whims of your ego that are trying to keep you stuck and in this never-ending cycle of more learning, more situational hardships, and more lessons, which never seem to end until you choose to let go of the victim consciousness. You may start to even question, what am I going to become if I surrender and let go of this victimized part of me? You might wonder if there's anything left after you stop identifying with yourself as a victim? What is it going to mean to fully forgive, to let go of these negative feelings, and to depart from the part of you that cannot let go of past limitations? Because on the other side of that is only more positive potentiality that is awaiting exploration. What I challenge you to do is to consider that you're one fractal of source consciousness playing out your own role in this collective mind. You're here at this time for a specific reason, and the only way that you can contact that truth is by choosing to depart from victim consciousness. If you choose not to, then that victim consciousness is simply preventing your state of self-actualization. It's preventing you from discovering the light within you, which is meant to radiate and to create a collective impact. And so you identifying more with the dark aspects of yourself creates contraction and a state of near invisibility, wherein your purpose for being here is not accessible to you or anybody else. And your pain simply creates deeper roots in that family tree of karma, pain, and suffering, which will continue on to the generations that come after you if you don't choose to do this deep work of transmutation and energetic alchemy. You might wonder if it's even permissible to choose to depart from victim consciousness altogether, because you think that it is a humble way to go about your life, seeing yourself not as somebody that can have an impact on the collective or on other people's lives, because you're used to minimizing yourself and to maintaining this shadow of self-doubt, denial, and constant limitation. But think about it this way. If you choose not to allow this light of consciousness to permeate your being and to locate all of these dark aspects that need to be healed in order for you to understand the real cosmic purpose behind your existence, then that darkness will simply be perpetuated around you. If you choose to stop coping with your pain, your struggles and challenges by understanding deeply why you're still so challenged with even the authentic emotional state within yourself, you'll start to locate ways to enter a state of full embodiment of this emotional truth, and to literally move your awareness into yourself and all parts of your energetic system and your psyche that need to be seen fully in order for you to end this game of self-defeat and fighting against reality, because you realize that you are inherently the creator of your own experience. Everything around you is also an expression of the way that karma is unfolding in our collective shared ecosystem. But every one of us is responsible for understanding how are we choosing to either create more karma or to effectively disintegrate these knots that we all inherit in order to create more purity, more radiance, and more connection in the world around us. This is the only way to experience lasting fulfillment, purpose, and liberation. If you are running away from anything in life, realize that what you can instead be doing is running toward the opportunity to meet more of your soul in this physical experience. By understanding what you are inherently curious about and what you can heal by just taking a good look into yourself and into everything that is unfolding in your physical reality, to see how every opportunity for greatness begins with the seed of victim consciousness. You can start to unfold all of these opportunities to experience deeper empathy by exploring what your emotions have been communicating as the main truth of your experience all along. And when we no longer feel afraid of feeling our feelings and expressing them, we can really step into the most regulated, balanced, and spiritually aware version of ourselves, because those feelings don't lie. And the energy that's loaded beneath them is what's inspiring us to break through this victim paradigm and to create the new world that we really want to be a part of. Try looking at reality as a collective experience in which everybody is either a victim or a self-aware enough individual that chooses to break out of the need to be imprisoned in victim consciousness and wants to create radical transparency, love, and authentic connection in their lived experience. When you see people that are not able to identify with themselves outside of victim consciousness, you can extend your heartfelt empathy and compassion for them. You can see that they still are stuck in that collective spell of disempowerment and not being able to locate the deepest source of divine intelligence within them that is guiding them into a space of deeper illumination and self-awareness. But by understanding the discrepancy between such souls that are still working through their ability to find that authentic self-empowerment from within and those that are already able to do so, you can identify distinctly within yourself where you now have a role to play in the creation of more empowerment. If you create a new challenge for yourself to rise even higher in your own evolutionary capacity for greatness, what do you need to challenge yourself to accomplish, to feel, to become, to heal? Are there some things that you've been putting off that can really now be accentuated as the focus of this experience? If your sole goal is to eliminate victim consciousness and to become the higher self, that has no way of identifying with victimhood at all, because your higher self knows that all of this is a learning experience. All of this needs to be taken seriously for the purpose of you understanding the point of all the variables that we accumulate in our life experience, which either create meaning or take us away from the deepest, most sacred meaning of all, which is to be a whole human, a loving being connected to the heart, mind, and soul simultaneously. And once you get there, you know that the victim consciousness has been an illusion all along. It's been a program creating self-manipulation and distraction from the ultimate cause, realizing that we're all lucid dreamers in this experience anyway. And when we really understand the mastery of energetic command and self-awareness, we know how to change any circumstances in life based on commitment, devotion, and genuine connection, rather than any kind of diversion from this truth of ourselves.